Welcome to the Nerd and Normie Podcast. I'm a big film nerd, Everett.
And I'm Emerald, and I'm engaged to a nerd.
On this week's episode, we'll be covering two movies. First up
is The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, directed by Francis Lawrence.
And I chose Next Goal Wins, directed by Taika Waititi. For both of these movies, we will do spoilers and non-spoilers and then spoilers. And there will be time codes down in the descriptions below if you want to jump around. Let's get into it.
Mr. Snow, after everything you've seen out there in the world, what are the Hunger Games for?
All right, for my pick this week, I chose The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, directed by Francis Lawrence. I was a huge Hunger Games nerd back in middle school and high school and forever.
To set the stage, I read the first book, didn't care for it. I think I've seen all the movies. I may not have seen Mockingjay Part 2.
I, on the other hand, have read the books probably like 10 times each. I was very obsessed with them. The movies I thought were all right, but I was a big reader back then, so I always kind of preferred the books to the movies. This one, I read half of the book, and it was I just am not a reader anymore. I am too much into the internet now, and it's hard for me to finish a book. But I read half of it, and then we went and saw it. I do so far also like the book better than the movie. I feel like the movie doesn't line up very closely at all with the half of the book that I read. So if you're expecting it to, I wouldn't really get your hopes up. I know a lot of people get really disappointed when a movie doesn't match up with a book. We talked about this on the ride home. I think they should have made this into a TV show. He disagrees with me, but considering the book is split up into 3 sections, I think they could have done 3 seasons. He said that he didn't agree just because he thought that there wouldn't be enough action in season 1 because usually the first part of a story doesn't have a lot going on, which in this case, given the movie circumstances, you would think that's true, but there is so much that goes on in the book that they leave out of the movie. So, I don't know. I think it would have been good.
Another part of my argument is you call a movie The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and then you make a season of a TV show without The Hunger Games, because that's part 2 is The Hunger Games. I think you're going to kind of set yourself up for a lot of criticism, a lot of backlash, a lot of confusion. I thought, with having watched this movie, it should have been 2 movies, and that would be fine. There was about an hour and a half, hour 45 of this movie. I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I was enjoying myself. I liked it, thought it was good. I thought that movie ended, and I was like, cool, credits are gonna roll. I enjoyed this. And then there's another hour of movie, and this is a 2 hour and 40-minute young adult movie, which I think will cost them in the long run because it's going to be hard to convince people for repeat viewings.
Yeah.
Whereas if they had done 2 hour and a half, hour 45, maybe even two 2-hour movies, people would have been much more invested. Then again, I also, having not read any of the book, I don't know where the book ends. And if that third part really, there's just not enough material for a full movie and they didn't want to expand, or if it was more of a, we haven't made a Hunger Games movie now in like 10 years, we're not confident, even though all the other ones did exceedingly well financially, it was diminishing returns. What if this one doesn't connect with audiences and no one goes? So they put it all in one movie. I don't know, but that really kind of killed the movie and its momentum for me when I was like, wow, great, what a good ending to this movie. That's very satisfying, and I enjoyed this. And then all of a sudden there's another hour that I found to be, of the 3 parts of the movie, not the least interesting outright, but very much it escalates and then drops back down, and where it built back up to was not the same heights as where it built in Acts 1 and 2.
Yeah, I feel like maybe if they would have ended it, I mean, we can go into it more in spoilers, but ended it with
there's a moment kind of in the
middle of the Hunger Games.
Yeah, the middle of the like rising action that could have been a good climax to this movie.
Yeah.
And then you pick back up on the next movie. Oh, we don't know where things have quite landed with all the characters. You start off with super fun action Hunger Games stuff that people are there and expect to see. And then at its core, what this is the fall of a single man and then his rise again, and political conniving and backstabbing and what will you do to restore your family name and all this kind of stuff. It's really a more politically charged movie than a Hunger Games action movie. And yeah, I think if you build the first one like a little more like an action movie that builds this big action set piece, and then this moment that we can talk about more later kind of is the climax, and then you start the next movie with action and then go heavily into the political side of this world, it is a really interesting premise, and I do really like the arc for Snow.
Yeah.
Coriolanus. I genuinely, I think it's a really good story, and often prequels fall subject to like, oh, it's, they can't do anything too exciting because it ruins the later movies, or like you can't do anything that's too obvious that it would have come up later. And this movie threads that needle perfectly. I think there's a few on the nose moments that are like, okay, one's in a trailer. But overall, I do think like this movie deserves to exist. The story is engaging and timely in a lot of ways also. Yeah.
I also think that Snow is one of the greatest villains in the books. In the movies, he's kind of a letdown, but his relationship with Katniss in the original ones is just so interesting to me, and all their conversations that they have are like bone-chillingly spooky. He's so like entertaining to read, but also like terrifying, and in the movies he just kind of falls flat and he's kind of just a background character.
Yeah, but I see that in this version of Snow. The guy who plays him, I don't remember his name.
Oh, let me pull him up. Tom Blythe.
Tom Blythe is incredible. He does a really, really good job in this movie, making you both root for and against him. He is a unlikable and you should hate him character, but he's so good in this role that you're not like cheering for him, but you understand
like Joe
every
Goldberg.
decision. Yeah, like a Joe Goldberg from you. Like, you understand every decision he makes, and because you're following him, you get kind of wrapped up in his worldview at times and kind of understanding. You're like, oh no, wait, you got to do this because that's what you're going for.
Yeah, and I do think that this is like the perfect story. Like, even though I hadn't finished the book yet, knowing how it goes now is the perfect like plot line to turn him into the way he is later.
Yeah.
And he was acted so perfectly. I thought everyone was casted really well. He's incredible as an actor.
Yeah,
I'd love to see him in more.
I'm really excited to see where he goes. This is a very impressive performance. Is it Rachel Zegler?
Yeah.
Who plays Lucy Gray, who's kind of the other main character in this movie, is also really good in it. I really enjoyed her performance. She can sing incredibly well.
Oh yeah, phenomenal.
Amazing voice.
He didn't know that there was going to be singing.
I did not know there was going to be this amount of singing, and they're in two different movies was my issue. They're both really good at what they're doing and what they're being asked to do. He is in a adult drama, character-driven study of a man, and she is in a fun young adult, action-y, political intrigue movie where the main character is kind of almost like a pop star within her world, and in any time there's an emotional moment, she bursts into song, and there's just a lot of moments in which a character normally, and I would not expect them to sing, and she sings because that's her character. And again, within her side of the movie, works perfectly. I would have been fine with that. But juxtaposed against him and his very serious, dramatic performance, it kind of made me chuckle a couple times.
Yeah, they also don't really go into the whole singing thing that much. She's part of a covey, and they go from like district to district being musicians and performing for people, and then kind of just got stuck in District 12 because like, yeah, that's just how things went for them, and they don't really talk about it that much, so it just kind of seems out of place with the singing.
Like, you know that's what she's from, and you know that's kind of what happened, and that she likes music and color.
But that's like the core of her existence, and they don't talk about it.
The first time you see her, like her first appearance, this is the first like 30 seconds of the movie, is her getting picked for the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
And she sings. And to me, that was like, oh, I think it should have, like we get, I guess technically the first little bit of the movie is a little backstory to Snow before we see him grown up. I think you could have also shown a little backstory potentially of her, of a lighter moment in which that's the first time she sings, is in a moment where we say, oh, this is her culture, it's her life, it's everything to her is music, and not, oh, she's this weird eccentric lady who decides to sing, and it's weird, and it's played like it's weird because it's being viewed from Snow's eyes, in which nobody knows who she is, and she was just picked and suddenly is singing.
See, I disagree. I like that beginning for her because it's from Snow's like perspective. So the first time he sees her, she's being a little crazy, you know, like she drops a snake down someone's shirt and then sings a song as she's getting chosen to go die. And I do think that's interesting, but then I wish they would have had like a conversation that included a flashback or something, because then like when she sings in the rest of it, you're just like, okay, but she's so talented that it should be in there. There just should be more of an explanation.
Or I think, or Snow should be a little less dramatic, or some of her singing should be a little less on the nose, kind of over the top cheesiness.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, and I think a lot of people are going to really love this movie, and I'm not going to begrudge them that. This is not the type of movie I came out, even though I don't love it, and I think there are structural issues, and I didn't love necessarily the dynamic between the characters. As I said, I actually really enjoyed this story. I was not a fan of the original Hunger Games things. They just never really clicked with me. But if they make another one of these, and he's playing Snow in his next phase, I am 100% there, and I would be very excited for it.
I agree. The whole time we were watching it, I was very immersed. Normally when we're in a theater, I like look around and fidget a lot, and I was just eyes glued to the screen until it ended, and I was like, oh, wow, we're in a busy theater.
And our whole theater was pretty
packed at a matinee.
Yeah, we couldn't get tickets Friday in like reasonable seats, and so we ended up buying tickets ahead of time for Saturday. Thank goodness we bought them ahead of time. Sold out theater at noon on a Saturday. Yeah. And a very engrossed audience. And again, I was engrossed for 2/3 of the movie, and then it fell off. But,
fair enough.
Yeah, let's. I guess we don't have too much to say in spoilers, but we can say a little bit. So here we go.
All right, moving into spoilers. So this follows Coriolanus Snow. This is after the war where the rebels tried to take down the capital, and the capital split everyone into the districts. And this is the 10th annual Hunger Games. It's before they're able to do all the tech stuff. It's before there's like donations, before there's mentors.
The arena is like a Coliseum type arena. It's just a big empty space. Yeah. With no hiding, no trees, with seats for fans to come and watch. It'd be like going to watch a
football game, soccer game, yeah. And they decide to do mentors. Snow's family previously has been very wealthy, very important, very powerful, but ever since the war and him becoming an orphan, they've had to scrape by barely. His cousin Tigris, She has been supporting them, working with a fashion person. This is from the book. They don't really go over this in the movie. And so he is expecting to get assigned a better person for the Hunger Games, but he gets assigned not only someone from District 12, which is the poorest, weakest, saddest district, but the girl also. So he's, a little nervous. But there's a prize being offered to whoever can make a spectacle out of their person,
basically after 10 years, the Hunger Games of just literally being a room where kids brutally murder each other has lost its appeal, and
people aren't watching, and it's not happening, and it's just they're considering cutting them all together. And the game maker lady, played by Viola Davis, is determined to make sure they remain and that they are a fixture of capital society and the whole districts in Pan Am. And so they basically create this mentor system and start changing some of the rules to the games to try and make it more of a spectacle. And that's where Snow comes in and really excels at this concept. Yeah, so like he shows up at the train station when they get dropped off. He ends up getting stuck behind, the cage in the zoo where they're keeping them. That's the other thing, is in this one, the I don't even know what to call them, the kids who are going in the Hunger Games, the tributes, that's the word. They don't.
Are you even a Hunger Games fan?
Shut up. They don't get taken care of like they do in the later ones. They are treated like animals, literally kept in a zoo where people watch and throw things at them and poke and prod and laugh and whatever. And he gets thrown in there. He makes, a spectacle of himself and of her. They don't really go over it a lot in the movie, but he does a lot more in the book. They do the Hunger Games. She wins. They fall in love-ish.
And I think an important thing here for the journey of Snow is that his whole thing is like, if we can make them human and get people to understand them and have favorites, they'll root for them and therefore they'll watch. And even though their person might lose, it's like sports. You watch the team you like and you're invested in them, and you'll continue to watch until the very end, hoping your team wins.
Yeah. And
so he's essentially trying to create these connections, and in doing so he gets to know her, and he starts he likes her, and they have a little bit of chemistry, and he kind of gets caught up in like, am I trying to save her or am I trying to save myself? But at the end of the day, he will have to make that choice of me versus her.
Yeah.
It can never be both of them.
Yeah, I told Everett when I was reading the book how terrified I was that it was seeming like a love story, because of the fact that his inner monologue the whole time is talking about how people from the districts are animals and the capital is so much better than them and everything. And I was like, I hope to God that they do not end up together. Which, spoiler alert, they don't.
Yeah. And I think the movie does a good job that in this time when he's kind of confused and could go either way, he never truly betrays his inner feelings that, no, at the end of the day, it's about me gaining power here, and I'm being successful, and I'm the important one, and I'm using her for that.
Yeah.
It's just coincidence that she also happens to be very charming.
Yeah. And that's where I do wish it was split up more, because like the build up in the books to getting to the Hunger Games, he really does seem he really does seem like he's this good guy minus this like inner monologue, you know what I mean? And like, I don't know, after they get out of the Hunger Games and she wins, he's kind of disgraced because he helped her cheat to win. And so he gets banished to go be a peacekeeper in District 8, but uses the last money that his family has to get put in District 12 so he can see her again. But still in doing so, his friend, well, supposed friend, gets assigned there too, because he thinks that they're going to make a difference. And because Snow told him that that's what he's there for, is to help make a difference, and he just doesn't. Yeah, and anytime something comes up where he chooses the capital every time because he's a bad person.
And this is the kind of one area, again, this is why I think it should have been 2 movies. I think there was more room to develop the build-up, as you just said, to the Hunger Games. But then also, this dynamic with his friend and them going to District 12, as they're going there, he's like mad about the Capitol and mad about everything that happened and full in on like, I'm going to District 12 to see Lucy Gray and this is going to be great, blah, 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 blah. And their friend and him are, trying to enjoy their lives there and make the best of it. And I immediately, the first time he's confronted with there's gray area in the world, he's immediately like, no, the Capitol's the greatest. And I was like, oh wait,
there's just no room.
There's no time.
There's no time for like the rise and fall. Like it's he's played so well, and it's such an interesting story of how he comes to be. I just wish there was more time.
And so he does end up betraying that friend and recording a conversation where that friend admits he's trying to help some rebels and stuff, and sends that to the game maker to try and use it as leverage, and
which then gets his friend killed. And
his friend gets killed, and then there's just kind of a no pun intended, but a snowball effect of the friend dies, and he then also, slightly before that, they get caught up with some rebels and they find some guns and someone tries to flee and he shoots her, and then the guns are tied to him and he can't have them found. And so there's all these layers that every time he does something that's like, no, this is the last thing I'm gonna do for the Capitol or whatever, and then Lucy Gray, you and me are gonna have a great life together, there's still a loose end, and that just keeps piling up, and everything he does to try and stop it just continues to be a step towards the inevitable Snow that we know from the Hunger Games.
So what we were saying earlier when we said it could be split, there's a part where Sejanus, who's his supposed friend, the one who he gets killed, he sneaks into the Hunger Games arena during the Hunger Games because his tribute is killed by the Capitol, basically. Because, technically he's killed by another tribute, but he's hung up, beaten, and left to die by the Capitol. And in their district, they have a tradition that they sprinkle breadcrumbs over dead people's bodies, basically, to give them sustenance on the road into their next life. And he didn't want him to lay there dying without that. And
they went to school together growing up, and then Sejanus is very wealthy and ended up having a life in the Capitol thanks to the war.
And he's super against it all. And so he sneaks in there, and they send in Snow to get him out because they've been friends up to this point, and they think he's the only one that he's going to listen to. And I think that would have been a perfect ending. It's building up suspense to that point, and that's just especially the way they set it up in the book versus the movie. In the book, Snow goes home, and Sejanus's mother is at his house saying that he's missing, and then they get a call and they're like, he's in the arena, which would have been just the perfect end, I feel like, and then have the next one build up.
I was thinking, having, again, not the book context, you can expand that out, maybe have the mother come in or something, but then send him into the arena. They go into the arena, he convinces him, and Snow ends up killing one of the tributes who comes at them, and it starts as self-defense, and then he beats the kid back or whatever, and he's lying on the ground unconscious, and he looks at him and he pauses for a second, and then he goes in for a third unnecessary killer blow.
Hit,
and I think have him do that, and then the movie ends on that kind of dark, oh my, this is the evil Snow, we're starting to see it, and then the next movie come in and be okay, we've seen the first domino fall, let's watch the rest of them fall into place.
That would have been just perfect. But so all this stuff happens, and him and Lucy Gray go to run away together, and she kind of finds out that he is the reason that his friend died. He admits that he's killed 3 people, and she's like, you've only told me about 2. I thought we were supposed to trust each other. That's like the most important thing to me. Who's the 3rd one? And he just lies, makes up a stupid lie on the spot, and she can tell. So she goes to like run away from him and then disappears into the night.
Yeah, I'd say like that part of the ending was a little just
weird. They said in an article that it's confusing unless you've read the book. So once I finish it, I'll let you know.
Because it is kind of just like she starts to realize he's not who he says he is, and that there's something going on under the surface, and he's, like he tells her, yeah, I'm 100% going with you, like I'm staying, and then he's going to take a position in District 2 because he's getting a promotion, and he's just going to take it, and he wasn't going to tell her, and then he's like, no, I'm not taking it, I'm staying with you, and she's like, oh, wait, but you were going to, and he's like, but I'm not now, and then they go to like this cabin, and there's just a weird exchange when he has like the gun, and she says like weirdly, like knowing, almost like provoking him, like telling him, hey, I'm your loose end, better not, I'm gonna go do this thing that I said you shouldn't do yet, and then goes, and then like a snake bites him in the woods, and she's running and still there, and like, why didn't she just leave? And again, so I think there might be more context in the book, but within the world of the movie didn't quite come across of what was going on there. The snake didn't end up even being venomous, so it was like,
no,
maybe
it was.
It did, but it didn't really affect him until way later, whereas everyone else you see bit by a venomous snake dies within 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So
I'll finish the book and I'll see if it like lines up, but in terms of like a movie, if you haven't read it, it does come across a little weird and confusing.
And again, I think if you split this up and you had an extra 45 minutes to build out this last third of the movie, you could explain what's going on here and set it up a little more coherently. Yeah. But trying to put it all into one, I commend them for being able to get it all in there and have it be a enjoyable watch. But I think it should have been 2.
That's always my big complaint when it comes to just like books going into movies, is that they just leave so much out. Like, there's 2 things that I was looking forward to a lot based off of what I read from the books, and it was like 2 things that they didn't include in the movie, which was such a bummer. Like, this one girl gets bit by a snake, and they show that, but then they never show her again. And, like in the book, Snow goes to visit her, and like the Capitol's lying and covering up like that she's in the hospital. They're telling her parents she has the flu. Like, it's just messed up. And I wanted to see the cool SFX makeup that they would do, because she basically like starts turning into a snake in the book. Not really, but like her eyes turn yellow and her skin gets like scaly and shedding and gross. And I wanted to see it because I thought it would be fun. And then I also wanted to see Snow and Tigress's relationship a little bit more, just because she was one of my favorite characters that I read in the book, and she's only in like 4 scenes in the movie, which really bummed me out, because like she was kind of his grounding person. She goes on to kind of imply to him that like when they were really, really struggling, that she was like selling herself basically so that they could survive. And so like she's encouraging this relationship that he has with his tribute, because she sees them as people, and she's kind of a huge influence on him. So I would have liked to see their relationship, because at the end, when he comes in and she's basically coming to terms with all the things that he's done and tells him that he looks just like his father, I think it would be more impactful if you were able to know the relationship between them building up to that. But yeah, so I think it should have been like a TV show or 2 movies or something. But overall, I do think it was enjoyable. The music was good. The acting was good. It was casted well. Yeah. Just not my favorite.
Yeah. So what would you rate it?
Probably like a 7.
Yeah, I'm probably going to be right there with you on a 7. But yeah. I'm really something Blythe. What was Coriolanus? Coriolanus.
Tom Blythe.
Tom Blythe. I cannot wait to see what he does next. He was exceptional.
Yep.
Welcome to the Capitol.
You look like you shouldn't be here.
I shouldn't, but I'm your mentor.
A rebel.
Alright, for my movie this week, I picked Next Goal Wins, directed by Taika Waititi, starring Michael Fassbender, Oscar Kiteley, Kai Mena, David Fane, who is a teacher of mine from film school. Love him. He is a great man. Rachel House and many others, including small roles for like Will Arnett and Elizabeth Moss and other people. It is the true story of the America Samoa national soccer team. And after they suffered...
mostly true, with slight embellishments.
I would say slightly more than slight. But yeah, so it is roughly based on the story of America Samoa, and they suffered the largest defeat in World Cup qualifying history with 31-0 to Australia. And then after this, they're kind of on the brink of being shut down. Most of the team has quit. And then there's a disgraced coach who coaches in the U.S. system, who is kind of on his last hurrah. He's gotten too angry and too temperamental to be put up with, and so they basically tell him, like, you can either do nothing with your life forever or go coach this team. And so he begrudgingly accepts it, goes and drinks his time away, but of course it's a feel-good sports movie. There are laughs, there are dramatic moments, there is then the inevitable conclusion to the movie, which if you know world soccer you might know, but if you don't, find out from the movie. This is non-spoilers. It's not my favorite Taika movie. I think he's dropped in quality over the years. I think he kind of grew. Some of his earlier New Zealand-based films were good, not great.
That's because Wilder People is the best movie.
But then, yeah, he makes Wilder People, Jojo Rabbit, Thor Ragnarok, and he's on the rise, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love everything this man makes.
And then he takes on every job known to man, and now...
So he's currently doing multiple Star Wars projects. He did Love and Thunder and other Marvel stuff, and then now he's also did this movie in the background, and he's in the show Black Flag. Anyway, doing a lot of stuff, a lot of work. And so I think this movie kind of suffers because it feels heavily improv'd and kind of just rushed. Like, okay, we got 30 days. That's all I've got for you guys. Let's shoot an entire movie.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's Parks and Rec that says you can't half-ass two things, you have to whole-ass one thing. And it shows in a lot of his work now that he's just not putting his whole heart into it.
Yep. And it is a shame because this is an incredible story, and there's in particular one character played by Kai Mena, who is Fa'afafine, which is a third gender recognized in Polynesian culture. Basically, as we know it in the Western world, is non-binary or transgender, and they are played by a transgender actor. And she plays for the men's national team because she biologically, medically is still considered male and can play for them up until a certain point when her hormones kick over certain levels, all this kind of stuff that the doctors have to figure out. Anyway, but her journey and the coach's journey are central to this team. And then again, there's also just the heartwarming story of the world's worst soccer team trying to just score a goal. And that's their only goal.
Yeah, not to win, just to get one goal.
Just to score one goal is all they're asking for. And I think, I don't know, I also am probably biased. I went to film school in New Zealand, so I love the culture, I love the humor. A lot of the jokes, to me, just, it sounds like when my friends would go, be riffing and stuff, the cadence, the timing of everything. Seeing my old teacher Dave Fane up there didn't make it feel any less like personal to me, so I might be a little biased in how much I enjoyed this.
But I've never been out of the country. I don't know Dave Fane, and I very much enjoyed it. I thought it was heartwarming. I thought it was funny. Like, I laughed out loud multiple times. I teared up a little bit. I thought it was, a good story. And was it predictable? Yeah. But any movie that then goes, into the credits and says, you know, this coach went on to do this, this, and this after the movie, it's gonna be predictable and a little bit silly, but it was cute and funny and heartwarming, and I liked it.
Yeah, and I think it's a story worth being told, and I think for the most part, everyone in it is enjoying themselves and giving good performances, and as you said, it is pretty funny at points. It's a little listless, like there's just a few moments where it's kind of just drifting till the next plot point, and a lot of what I would assume is kind of just some improv dialogue. Taika Waititi loves long, lingering jokes that have overstayed their welcome, and then get funny because they've been sitting there for so long not being funny, is like
the guy going up the stairs.
Like the guy going up the stairs for like 30 seconds. Yeah, that's very much his type of humor, and I think because we've been kind of burned by recent Taika Waititi, critics are going super harsh on this movie.
I also feel like it's coming out at a very poor time,
yes,
given the circumstances of everything going on and the letter that he signed. A lot of people are boycotting him and are very upset with him. But putting all of that aside for just the quality of the movie, I think it's being judged a lot harsher than it should have been. I think it's a very good movie.
Yeah, and I think also, I can't prove this, but I would wager that a lot of just feel-good, fun movies do not score well with critics, because critics, they're mad that there wasn't enough drama. Oh, there could have been such a more gripping story if you done. Yeah, but then it wouldn't be
a feel-good
funny.
Movie, yeah.
Like, you'd have to sacrifice on the comedy, and it's a comedy. Yeah. And so I get that argument, and maybe, there is a documentary version of this movie, same title, Next Goal Wins. If you want the serious version of the story, go watch that.
Yeah.
If you want the light and breezy comedy version of it, watch this. And I don't understand why there can't be both in the world, and why critics are so only wanting, it's the same thing. We haven't seen it yet, we're seeing it next week, but like the Marvels came out, audience score 85%, it's a feel good, quick, fun, happy movie. Critics gave it like barely ticked over 60% just recently, and it's like, why can't you just have fun? Why does everything have to be...
They do it with horror too a lot, where it's like, no, I'm not going for the realism, I'm going for the spooky, silly ghosts that jump out, so I wouldn't take the critic rating too much to heart. But honestly, my recommendation, which sucks because I do want these people to make money, but I would wait for streaming, just because I think it's a good, fun movie to like watch after work if you've had a stressful day and you want just to be, a heartwarming, nice little movie that's funny to watch while you eat dinner.
I think good. This will be a good family after work kind of movie, and I could definitely see it doing really well on streaming.
It does swear, so
it does swear a bit.
I wouldn't say fully family movie, but almost family.
Yeah. But at the same time, I don't know. It was really nice to be in a theater again, nearly sold out. Which for the past few movies we've been to have been
packed,
pretty packed, and good audiences, not annoying audiences.
Yeah,
thankfully. But being in a room again with 50 other people who were laughing at the movie and enjoying their time. That's a fun experience, and I am a sucker for the theater experience and want to see it stick around. So I say don't wait for streaming and go enjoy it with a group of friends. You'll not be disappointed. Go to a matinee where tickets are a bit cheaper.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, let's move into spoilers. All right, spoilers for Next Goal Wins. They score 2 goals.
Yeah.
And they win the game against Tonga at the end. I think... Other than that,
there was some stuff a little bit off with the transgender storyline it's not just us. A lot of people have said that that's the thing that threw them a little bit. They don't do that as well as they could.
I think this is one of the points where a much more dramatic version of the story, or one that takes a breath to be serious for a minute, would have handled it differently. I don't think this is the most egregious representation of trans people in the world, but I can totally understand why there are a couple moments in this that don't sit well with people.
Yeah. But I would also defend it a little bit by saying it is based off of an early 2000s story when that was not as commonly seen. So, like, if they were trying to stay true to the story, I could see why it would go down this way. But in today's terms, it was a little bit...
There's a couple moments that were like unnecessary. Like if you had just taken a second pass at the script and cut out a couple lines or swapped a few or changed the order of a couple events, namely like he calls her by her legal name Johnny when she goes by Jaina, and does it in a malicious intent.
I thought it was
Jaya, might be Jaya. Does it in a malicious intent, and then she later comes and apologizes first for not giving enough to the team.
Which I would say tracks with an old grumpy white drunk man in the early 2000s, but today he should be the one apologizing.
Yeah, he should. Or there should be a point potentially made in the movie about like, hey, why, you're my coach. Why am I coming and extending the olive branch? You're supposed to lift me up. Could have been the conversation after, but instead it's some dumb jokes about genitals.
Yeah.
The
thing that bothered me though was that when she first walks on screen, the people who edited this movie did it in a way that when she walks up, he's like staring at her and like checking her out almost, and they're playing like that early 2000s hot girl walks in music. And then he goes like, oh, who's she? And then later he like calls her his daughter's name, and
once he like gets to know her.
And that's a little icky to me. So I just think that people who edited it could have done a little bit better on that.
And I think
part.
again, it's just like they didn't take the time to link a moment that happened very early in the movie with a moment way later in the movie, and they were just like, oh, it's funny because she arrives dressed in like a dress and is all makeup all done up and stuff, and has just come back from university in Hawaii and things, and comes in with a bit of arrogance to her, and so when she first walks up and he's surrounded by all these guys, he's like, ooh, wait, who's she? Is she the team masseuse? Because that's the culture he's used to, is you're on a soccer field and a woman walks up, she must be backroom staff, something like that. But they don't ever like come around on that or make it comfortable or have like the fact that then he calls her by his daughter's name does come across weird.
So like there's just a few things that didn't like flow right. It wasn't super connected in parts, but overall it's a good movie.
You're gonna enjoy yourself, you're gonna laugh, you're gonna smile. It's very heartwarming at the end. Again, they end up scoring 2 goals. Jaya scores one of them, the winning goal.
And not only do they score, but they win their first game ever.
They win their first game ever and have since never returned to the bottom of world rankings, which is cool. I don't know. And then they show during like the credits, they do the classic like show some clips from like the documentary, and the coach was throwing chairs around and crazy, and Jaya is a person and the first ever.
We should have said also his daughter had died, and that's why he's grumpy and drunk, and that's why it means a lot when he considers her like his daughter.
Which I think they keep that as like a reveal, and they make you want to think like because he's grumpy, his wife has left him, and that's why he continues to be grumpy. And then it's revealed, no, they were happy and good, and he was successful until his daughter died, and then he became grumpy, and that's the issue. I don't know that revealed like.
It wasn't much of a reveal.
Yeah, it just was like, oh, okay, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I think the point of like the reveal part was because he had never talked about it before, and then he finally opened up and told the team about it, because that's really why his wife left, is because he refused to talk about it. So
I think like you could have maybe just introduced that a bit earlier, and the movie might flow a little better as well. But again, it's not the most structured movie ever put to film. But I really enjoyed this one.
So what would you rate it?
I'm also gonna go with 7 for this one.
Me too. Double sevens.
Yeah, double sevens this week. It's an enjoyable movie. It's no Wilder People, it's no Jojo Rabbit, but it's also
if you
not
haven't
as bad
watched
as Love
those,
and Thunder.
go watch those.
Yeah,
Not
those
Love
are...
and Thunder. Don't watch that.
No. But yeah, Wilder People and Jojo Rabbit are truly phenomenal films, and I hope. And he has said a little bit in interviews, Taika, that like he's a bit burnt out on the Hollywood's big budget system, which you can see, and so hopefully he is going to kind of return to his roots, and the lack of good reviews on this movie doesn't put him off from that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's our thoughts on Next Goal Wins.
It's known as the beautiful game, but let's face it, it's a complicated game, guys. Soccer, as you like to call it, is like life. Next season, I think we have a real shot.
I'm sorry, Thomas, did nobody tell you? You're fired.
All right, thank you for listening to our episode this week. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Nerd and Normie, and tune in every Monday for a new episode.
And if you're listening on YouTube, like and subscribe. And if you're on an audio platform, leave us a 5-star review. It really helps us out.
Thank you.